I had two pet snakes, one green, one white. Every night when I'd go to sleep, I'd always feel these two ice-cold things, wrapping around my whole body. And right by my ear I'd hear, "It's my turn tonight." Right after that, a faint tingling sensation would hit. Then I'd instantly get pulled into this shattered, fragmented dream, like someone drowning, desperately reaching for anything to hold on to. But the last thing I grabbed in that dream was a pair of ice-cold feet. "You little dummy, still acting up? Greedy enough to want us both?" Let me rewind to a few days earlier. I had brought two white mice back from the lab and dropped them into the glass tank. Little green, little white, dinner time. Inside the glass tank were two snakes, one green, one white. Both about as thick as an arm, just hanging on a branch, lazily soaking up the heat lamp. They had zero interest in the white mice. They barely even glanced at them, then just shut their eyes again. Over in the corner were the mice from last time, but those ones were already dead. I went ahead and checked out the dead mouse, found that its gallbladder had burst, meaning it had literally been scared to death. At first, I was genuinely worried that the two snakes would starve without eating. But after a while, they seemed totally fine. They were even growing. Even so, once a week, I'd still bring two white mice in, just in case they got hungry. I treated those two way better than I treated myself. They were literally tied to whether I'd graduate or not. I checked the time, almost 6 p.m. I was gonna be late. I quickly washed my hands and grabbed my bag. My roommate Whitong started roasting me. "What's the rush, man? You got a date with that senior girl or something?" My face went red. "Stop talking nonsense. She just wanted to thank me for fixing her computer." All right, just messing with you." "Ha. But when you two get married, don't forget to treat me to dinner." Weidong was just joking around. Neither of us noticed that at that very moment, the two snakes in the tank had opened their eyes and were staring right at me, cold as ice. By the time I got back to the dorm, it was already 11 p.m. Weidong was already asleep. I tiptoed through my whole nighttime routine. The snakes in the tank saw me come back. Their eyes tracked my every move. That ice-cold stare made me shudder involuntarily. Cold-blooded animals for real. I'd been under that stare for way too long. Not even a hint of warmth. But after I laid down, I suddenly couldn't sleep. Earlier that night, I'd gone to a coffee shop with my senior. I don't normally drink coffee, so one cup was enough to keep me wide awake. Half asleep, I felt someone pull back the curtain around my bed. I tried to move, but I couldn't. Then something started sliding under my covers. Slick and slippery. "This guy smells like another woman. Ugh, disgusting." I had just washed up. There was no smell on me whatsoever. My head was spinning. I found myself subconsciously going along with what she said, but I couldn't even open my eyes. "Looks like we've been way too nice to him. He doesn't even know who he belongs to." A voice came from the right, just as cold, but deeper than the one on the left. "Looks like someone needs to be punished today. Time to teach this little dummy a lesson." The moment she said punished, the voice on the left lit up with a hint of a smile, like this was something she absolutely loved. I instinctively started to feel scared. Honestly, this was the most terrifying dream I'd ever had. Through the haze, I heard two voices, arguing about something. Then it sounded like one of them gave in, and then I felt it. A wave of dull pain. That feeling of being drained, it was way too real. It made the whole dream feel even more unhinged. I felt like a drowning person, rising and sinking in the water. Even gasping for air couldn't help me breathe. A woman giggled softly, and in an instant, it triggered something. Some scattered memory of mine. This wasn't the first time I'd had this dream. I reached out my hand. "Aw, little dummy's been naughty. So greedy." That flirty, teasing voice sent chills down my spine. Then suddenly music started blaring. The crushing pressure and that drowning feeling vanished instantly. I jolted straight up. It was already daylight, sunlight streaming through the curtains. All that fear just melted away. That music, it was Weidong's alarm. I had never in my life been so happy to hear an alarm go off. That dude was literally my lifesaver, because that dream was just way too real. I was still shaken. It felt like it had actually happened. I looked down. The bed was a mess, sheets damp with a big wet stain. Probably from me thrashing around trying to wake up. Then Weidong pulled back his curtain too. He rubbed his eyes, and immediately spotted the two snakes in the tank. They were just sitting there with their eyes shut. "Daimao, your snakes are so weird. They don't even want to eat the mice?" The two mice were huddled in the corner, little red eyes full of pure terror. "Yeah, honestly bizarre. My name's Daimao. I'm a biology master's student. Currently in my second year. I found these two snakes while doing fieldwork in the mountains a while back. They didn't match any species I'd ever seen. At the time, I was working under this cool, stoic, older type advisor, and there was a cute junior a year below me. Hey Daimao, bro. Weren't you stressing about what to write for your thesis?" My junior smiled sweetly, two little dimples showing. She had somehow ended up right next to me without me noticing. When I turned around, I nearly kissed her on the cheek. I freaked out and stepped back fast, trying to get a grip, but my junior didn't seem to notice at all, just smiling at me like nothing happened. And honestly, I felt a little flutter, like I was under a spell. I turned to glance over at my advisor. Her calm, composed face gave a small nod. "Dude, if you discovered a brand new subspecies, that would be your best research achievement ever. Your name would be in the textbooks, right alongside these two little snakes you found. Who wouldn't want to make their mark in the science world?" But my immediate priority was just to graduate, so I brought them back and kept them in my dorm room. Lucky for me, Weidong was also a biology grad student, just under a different advisor, so this guy totally understood where I was coming from. Weidong also kept a few foxes, but because of species regulations, his had to stay in the lab. Still, I had my concerns. It had been about half a year since I brought them back. These two snakes were almost always in this hibernation-like state. There was barely anything useful I could observe. I was getting more and more stressed. I still had a year left until graduation, and I'd need a full data analysis by then just go talk to your advisor. Professor Ruyan is literally the best advisor at our school. Made full professor at such a young age. At her level, she could easily be a doctoral supervisor. And when you first interviewed, didn't she say she was really impressed by you? I nodded, but felt a little awkward about it. Liu Ruyan had this cold, quirky personality, very distant. What she was impressed by wasn't me as a person. It was my results. Outside of the necessary stuff, I avoided bothering her whenever I could. But Wei Dong had a point, so I packed up and headed to the lab to find my advisor. But right before I walked out, I glanced in the mirror and noticed something. 2 barely visible red dots on my neck, positioned perfectly, right where my collar covered them. I pulled the other side open. 2 more red dots, just a shade darker. I'd basically been living in the lab, never paid attention to any of this. If my collar hadn't been a little wrinkled today, I would have never even noticed. The marks didn't hurt, and I couldn't figure out how I got hurt there. Then suddenly the dream from last night came rushing back. I spun around fast. The 2 snakes in the tank had woken up at some point, watching me without making a single sound. That look in their eyes made my skin crawl. That faint pain on my neck from the dream. Could it be? A wild, crazy thought was about to break through. The 2 snakes were locked onto me. Then suddenly I noticed the corners of their mouths curve into something that looked like a human smile, but completely ice cold. Right at that moment, my phone buzzed. A message from my junior. Hey bro, the advisor wants to see you. She's in lab number 2. Lab number 2 was the advisor's private lab. No one else had ever been in there. But when I looked back up at the tank, the 2 snakes were just lazily soaking up the warmth with their eyes closed. Maybe I was just seeing things earlier. I couldn't help but laugh at myself. They're just snakes, no hands, no feet. How would they even get out of a sealed glass tank? Wei Dong was also ready to go. He was heading to the lab to check on his foxes too. The biology building was tucked in a corner of campus. Pretty out of the way. Wei Dong's lab was on the left side as you walked in. The 2 foxes in the cage lit up the second they saw Wei Dong, instantly snapping from sluggish to fully hyped. Wei Dong grabbed a big bag and poured fox food into the little bowl in the cage. But the 2 foxes, one red, one white, didn't even go for the food. They were fighting over each other to lick the back of Wei Dong's hand, little red tongues going at it with full devotion. Wei Dong, how'd you get your foxes acting like dogs? Honestly, so jealous. My 2 snakes, though. 0 reaction every single day. I was joking, but low-key genuinely envious, even though they were my research subjects. I had already made up my mind. I'd never abandon them. I'd keep them forever. Right then, the 2 foxes looked up like they understood, and stared right at me. Their eyes had none of the warmth they showed Wei Dong. Just cold, almost like a hint of contempt. Dai Mao, bro! What are you even doing here? The advisor's waiting for you. A clear voice rang out. I turned around. My junior was standing in the doorway holding her books. Today, same as always. White knee-high socks with a short skirt. Sweet and adorable as ever. Big bright smile on her face. But her eyes didn't quite match that smile. I quickly said bye to Wei Dong. We walked down the hallway, my junior just behind me. She kept her head down, lost in her own thoughts. Honestly, my junior and I weren't that close, even though we were in the same research group. She was way more talented than me, already published several papers at such a young age. That track record could get her straight into a PhD program. Advisor Ruyan really had high hopes for her. My junior spent way more time with the advisor than I did. Lately, it seemed like she and Professor Liu Ruyan were working together on some new research project. Suddenly, my junior stopped walking and I wasn't ready for it. I walked right into her back. What's wrong, bro? My junior was about a head shorter than me. I looked down, and she was glancing back at me with these soft, lingering eyes. She looked kind of hurt. I was confused, but in a blink, she was back to her usual bubbly self. Was that another hallucination? What was wrong with me today? Everything I looked at felt like an illusion. Probably because I didn't sleep well after that coffee last night, plus the nightmare on top of it. So I was just out of it. I need to go to bed early tonight. So senior bro likes obedient little puppies, huh? I paused. Looks like she overheard my conversation with Wei Dong. Yeah, they're all fluffy, adorable, and actually know what you're feeling. Then I thought about my 2 snakes and felt a little defeated. You know, snakes have feelings too. Did you not know that, Daimao bro? They've got emotions, desires, the whole range. My junior suddenly moved closer. I instinctively stepped back, then stumbled and almost fell. My junior grabbed my arm, flashed her little fangs and said sweetly, "Hey Daimao bro, watch out!" My face went red. I quickly pulled away and muttered a thanks. What were you 2 just talking about? The advisor's voice came from right behind us. Calm and cool, but with a clear edge of irritation. Right then, behind us, the door to lab number 2 swung open. The advisor was standing in the doorway. Her gaze swept over me, cold as ice. I don't know why, but I always felt a little scared of her. Especially those icy eyes. Cold, just like a snake.